the I like Coach Rule's presser given the game, right? Just enough. I'm not super happy. I'm not the happy narrative guy. I'm not the doom and gloom narrative guy. We need to get like I kind of liked his temperament
Mhm.
given how that game unfolded.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, we could use special teams as an example. Obviously, I thought it was a plus because to have your kicker hit that 52-yarder, which I thought was a reset of that game after sort of a jittery first quarter, and then obviously what Arch did in his first game, just you felt confident in him. I mean, it honestly on his last punt when he got out there, I was like, he's going to hit this inside the 10. I really believed it, and he did. And so they did well in that respect. But I like that he took that and said, wasn't like all flowers with special teams either. We didn't bust big return. We kicked the ball out of bounds. So we're not going to just lean into the, I guess, easy narrative like, look, special teams is, 100 times better than it was last year. I do think it was a positive for them, but we'll use that as an example to your question. I think he's showing that, you can take something you think is a plus by a little bit and something you think is a minus by a little bit, and you're going to find the ups and downs at both those things as you go through the tape.
I mean, isn't that kind of in a little microcosm of basically the entire game? I mean, let's take Dylan for example. Did a really good job of taking what was given to him. Really made a bad decision on that 1 4th down that could have ended up really ugly, but it didn't. Right. So there's a lot of good there. There's some bad there. The offense in general, like that they were able to salt 5 minutes off the clock at the end of the game. Really would have liked them to end up with points a couple more times there. Defense, you'll take 17 points and under 300 yards of total offense. Probably don't want to give up 200 on the ground, right? Like that's
Yeah.
basically
It's
the
really good teaching tape.
entire game for Nebraska. And guess what? You still got the W, right? You don't have to teach this after another gut punch loss. Like I don't know. I think the tone should be a little more positive this week than I've experienced. I don't know what you guys have seen.
Yeah, I mean, and I also think, Holgerson said it yesterday. I do think that was a really good game for this offense for what they will have. Not that type of defense necessarily in the Big Ten, but you have to have a patient mentality when you get to league play where it doesn't just happen at the snap of a finger for you every week. You're going to be in a game, and they might be in a game in 3 weeks from now, we know, where it could be a slog, and you've got to have that sort of wherewithal and that ability to go to the sideline after a possession that was maybe an 8-play drive where you had to punt at the 50 and you're a little disappointed, but you got to pick yourself up and next drive mentality. We're gonna go a little bit further with it, and I think this game kind of presented that on that side of the ball to really test, not only Dylan's patience but also those wide receivers. Like they made some plays when they were there, but I'm sure that's frustrating when you think there are some explosives that you can bring to the table, but you also know how they're defending you, that it might not be that kind of night, and you have to kind of reconcile that as a competitor. And so in that way, you hope it's a really nice game of kind of building that mentality of how you have to battle through those kind of fist fights in an alley type of games.
BC, when we're talking about kind of transitioning to the next opponent, at what point, like, do you go from, in your opinion, teaching tape and working on what was presented to being opponent specific? Because week 1 to week 2, it seems like those two things kind of blend together almost more than any other week during the course of a season.
Yeah, I don't know how it goes inside the walls. You would know better than I. Like when you make that shift with your team, sort of deal. I do think, and I guess I wouldn't say it's a danger, but they have to be ready to go out there and not take anyone lightly this week. And I know Akron lost to Wyoming, so I'll just use this as the example. Like when Rule talked, no one actually asked him a question about Akron. I mean, he didn't.
Yeah.
He didn't get one question about Akron, and it makes sense. I'm not blaming us. I actually think that's fine. We can get to some of that Thursday with him going into that game. but that's sort of the mindset outside the walls, right? It's sort of like we're going to analyze this Cincinnati game all the way up until kickoff Saturday, it seems like. And so I do think they just have to be mindful, the players and coaches, and I'm sure they are with it, of like, all right, it's time to shift gears. This is what they're going to present you, and this is how we can take advantage of it. Let's move on. So I would guess like Monday or Tuesday, they kind of flip the switch there, maybe even earlier than that. I like the fact that they, and I guess it's been a thing they've been doing where they have the guys sort of grade themselves a little bit. Then you come back, and it's like, okay, what can you do better? Look yourself in the mirror. Like, what was your effort on this play or that play? And so I like that concept, especially when you got a couple extra days to work with when you played on a Thursday.
BC had no idea. I clearly don't have any idea what's going to be said in press conferences. But one thing I talked about Friday and even Monday morning or Tuesday morning was a lot of this seems to be for the way Cincinnati played, you need to see it in games. You need game speed. And I talked about, Javen it's only his fourth start. And Watson Trent had missed a fair amount of time. Shavers was coming off an injury. To step in full time with that offense, I felt like was going to present some challenges. When you listen to Coach Rule talk about, hey, angles and pad level and violent hands, those are all fundies, right? Those are fundamentals. Then you heard Coach Holgerson say, and I don't know if you've heard a coach say this before, but he literally said, you're not going to get any better in practice, right? Like at some point you just reach it and you have to play a game. I thought that was one of those things that we don't really hear people say, but when you combine with where Nebraska is and how they have to get better, it all fits together, right? That's kind of my general takeaway.
Yeah, I think so too. And you got to see your mistakes against someone else. Just like, okay, this is what it's actually like at game speed when the lights are on, when you're in a big time stadium. Most of those guys have played in those sort of venues before, but it was a different setting. And I always think it's a little weird when you go to a neutral site game. It's got that bowl site feel. I know it was like a Husker crowd, of course, and that was huge in the game. But it reminds a little bit of the Pinstripe Bowl. Whenever you're away from your home setting, there's still that adjustment phase. And the games, it does seem to me like those kind of games always play themselves back to kind of a one score type of game sometimes. And so you've got to have some mental toughness to handle new surroundings and sort of, okay, they're throwing something different at us than what maybe we expected going in. And yes, we've heard this guy's a running quarterback and all that, but yeah, okay, he really is. Like he can take off and he's a little different than even like a TJ Lateef or some guys we think are a little mobile. This is maybe a different type of guy. And until you see it up close, it's just going to be a different animal. So I think it's really useful that first game to, okay, here's where you're at against somebody else that you don't know inside and out. You knew the other side of the ball on your team inside and out by the end of August. You didn't know this team. They threw a few curveballs at you. This is what you did well in adjusting. This is what you didn't do well. Let's analyze that and move on to the next one. So I think it's big. And that's why I've been in that camp. That's you take your 1-0 after week one, especially against when you play another power conference team. You take it gladly, and then you say, okay, we have a lot of things we can get better at, but we're happy to be 1-0. Let's go to work.
BC, was that you? I didn't talk to too many guys before, but was that you that I said I think we may be underestimating the impact of the fan base before the game started?
We did talk a little bit about that, and I think it played out that way. You got to give.
It didn't seem like we talked about. We'd say things like, "Oh, hey, they're going to get 60K or whatever," but even up until when I saw the takeover, I was like, I may have misconstrued the level of input. Like that was a hostile takeover, and it was loud,
and it impacted Cincinnati.
Yeah, it was very loud.
Yeah, I think we kind of I think we slept on the impact a little bit pre the game.
this fan base has been very loyal to this team in tough times, and obviously they wanted to jump out of the blocks good, and they had an impact on that first game because you can go back to like 2 or 3 different moments where they caused critical false start penalties. I mean, one was like on the first drive, and then the second drive after Keona Davis made that nice play on a 2nd and 4, there was another one that forced a field goal. And, of course, the one at the end on the last drive. So I can think of 3 offhand. And, the one was their veteran left tackle on the last drive, too, who moved early. And that was the crowds doing their part. So Husker fans should be proud of that. And I didn't think they didn't get down on their team either when it was sort of a struggle there at times in the second half, and it felt nervous. And there was a genuine reaction of just exhilaration when Hartzog picked that pass off. When you see the reaction in the stands and stuff, it's like, all right, that's how a home fan base needs to be to help your team get through one like that.
I misspoke in the press box to Kyle and Ben. Full disclosure, I came back. I was down on the field, and clearly I should have waited for the O-line and D-line to come out, but I came back upstairs with this brilliant take. Man, Cincinnati looks a little undersized. Nebraska looks better on the hoof. But then the game happened, and I'm like, boy, Cincinnati is big up front on both sides of the ball, right? I thought that caught me. Cincinnati's size caught me off guard a little bit.
Yeah, and we can't underestimate like what a guy like Corleone can do to a game just by a player like that that's a 3-time all-conference player. I mean, you saw early on it was like the second possession for Nebraska where he pushed Letovsky back right into Ryla's lap. I mean, he's going to have some plays like that that just disrupt and affect stuff. They have guys on that roster that are going to play in the NFL. There were a lot of scouts to watch Cincinnati guys as much as Nebraska guys. And that includes, this is getting away from your question, but that includes Joe Royer, the tight end, who Nebraska really did a nice job taking out of the game.
He was a handful. He had to and good on him for not, impacting the game so much as a passer, but he was grading some guys up as a blocker. Like, he showed a lot of versatility.
Yeah, he'll do himself well with some of that tape, but he's one of those guys where we've seen some tight ends really burn Nebraska in the past, and for him to be held to 3 for 11 in that regard, obviously since he only threw for 69 total, I mean, it was just that stat was impressive. So as much as we talk about the QB run game that ding Nebraska and what they got to do up front with the run, they did do some things that I would not have anticipated on the other side of the coin, on the defensive side of the ball, sort of taking out Royer from being a big weapon in the passing game, and also those wide receivers who, honestly, that the Cincy wide receivers were the thing they were talking about the most in their camp and what they could do. Yeah. And Nebraska's corners really kind of said, no, you're not going to be a big part of this thing.
BC, was there anything that you did see? I know we're trying to be measured, and I appreciate that. Was there anything you did see that you looked at and you go, yeah, that does actually kind of worry me moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, the D-line's got to make some hay. I mean, there's no doubt about that. I'm not surprised they are where they're at. Like, honestly, if you had said last Tuesday, what do you sort of expect out of that group? Kind of what I saw. So it's not like it was startling by any measure, but there's some guys that they got to come along each week. They got to get a little bit better. And I know that's kind of cliche talk, but that's just the truth of the matter. There's some guys that did not have enough of an impact up front that have to be impactful guys. And there's a big opportunity for them now to just let's see what you got here. It's kind of back to Damon's first point about having it on tape now. It's like, this is what it looked like. This play where, you did well. This was a play where you got owned a little bit. Let's go back to the drawing board and fix that up as we can. So the D-line and, watching Trent, I'd like to see a little more activity from, and, guys like Judy and stuff like that. But, let's see where this goes now that you've got a little film to look at and see where you can take it. But that group, I think, is still a work in progress.
I can't stress this enough when I hear, and I get it, right? Because you have to see it sometimes as a fan base, or but the coach in me loves the whole, hey, we're not going to panic, we're going to evaluate, right? Where he is talking about angles and being too sticky, like getting off blocks and playing faster and hand placement, because that just lets me know you're going back to the basics, where when you watch that tape, I could hear it, right? It'll be, see, we talk to you all the time about pad level or finishing through ball carriers, or like those things you absolutely can control. But when you're in practice, your muscle memory makes you, it feels right to you until you actually see it against someone else, right? I'm sure, Judy or Van Poppel or somebody, oh, hey, good pad level, I'm not too high, or you hear Braden say, hey, change your pad level. Hey, my pad level's good, or Watson Trent, right? You've missed some time and you're trying to get back acclimated. Like, you need game speed to fit in the run game, right? It's like, okay, I'm seeing it. I'm seeing it. It's different than being on film than actually when you're out there. So I don't know. I look at a game like this where you got a chance to get the win. And as a coach, there's so much good teaching tape where you can double down on what you've been preaching, which is why I like kind of what Coach Rule was saying. And how intense was Coach Butler, right? Like, Coach Butler couldn't get that thing over fast enough to get back to the practice field. Like, and those are the guys he's looking for, right? I mean, Coach Rule says he wants some more dudes on the sideline. I think he's talking about attitude too, right? Like, let's get back to work.
Yeah. I mean, all good points there. And I mean, even like base stuff, like I think Rule brought up like Williams Nwaneri, like he was lined up maybe a little wide. And if you change something like that, something fundamental,
or just
like
playing underneath a pass rusher on the tackle and he gets outside of
Yep.
you, like you pushed him back in his lap, but you go inside. Sorsby gets outside, and it's like it's a 14-yard gain, right? Like, that's good. That's good teaching tape.
Yeah, and I gotta think coaches love this week. I mean, like you said, you have the win, but there's so much there where it's like, okay, see where you almost had this play, but you didn't. This is what we can adjust here. Let's go to work on it. Let's see what that gets done, over the next few weeks. And hopefully these are weeks too, that this team can build confidence, play some depth guys. You don't want to take anything for granted, but that's what you hope these games are. And just keep, working at your craft and bettering it. But that's what first weeks are for. It's in kind of an experiment out there sometimes. You're figuring some stuff out on the fly about how certain guys react to different scenarios they haven't seen. And that's why you see sometimes bad football across college football. I think if you watch this weekend, it wasn't just a great ball. It was great to have it on, but it wasn't great execution by any means.
Tough out here.
And so, Nebraska has its flaws just like everyone else, join the club. I was watching Michigan, New Mexico back on the BTN 60 thing, and Michigan's got flaws, and, they won a 34-17 game over New Mexico that we'd be complaining about that result around here if that were attached to that opponent. So, everybody's got their things to work out, and Nebraska's no different in that regard.
I mean, Indiana had over 500 yards total offense and 27 points, right? They're 10 of 17 on third down. I just go back to keeping it about what you could do differently. I mean, if Nebraska ever figures out how to finish drives, can you imagine? Like, you're 10 of 17 on third down or whatever it was. You have 4 trips where you cross the 40, and you're averaging a little over 3 points per trip when you get across the 40. Like, if you get that figured out, you're getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah, and I that's what I like about Holgorsen, just right to the chase. I mean, he's like he liked the test. Also, he says at one point, I didn't like scoring 20 points. It wasn't enough for him. Didn't like the 4.5 average. I think promising things, to your point, Damon. Obviously, the drive everybody thinks of is the Pritchett false start, but I do like that Dana also said, yo, we had 3 cracks at it from the 5.5 after that. We got to put that thing in the end zone and bring it back to the team. And like, yeah, there's going to be stuff sometimes that pops up, but you got to overcome it. The good thing is you saw with Isaiah and Dane why they were brought in here. And you need those type of guys to make plays in those type of moments to be on the right side of the column. And sure enough, they did. I mean, that catch by Hunter was a fabulous catch, not only to bring it in, but to get the feet down. And then obviously Dane just shook the jock off the one guy. And they knew that was there. But that's nice to see that, to know that can be part of that red zone operation going forward.
That's our guy, Brian Christopherson, Husker247 BC. Appreciate the time as always. We'll talk to you next week.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys.
Thanks, B.